Namaste, namaste. A very good morning and a very warm welcome to all of yours to the yet another Dekho Apna Desh 87th webinar. Can you imagine? It's 87th webinar we have reached today of the Ministry of Tourism, Government of India. Once again, we are on an Incredible India journey through these Incredible India webinars, which bring India's variety of tourist destinations to you. And not only tourist destinations, but it also brings back the history of India to you. And how? Through our expert speakers, we will be bringing you today the most interesting subject, which is stories from London of Orient. Now, what's London of Orient? Stories from London of Orient, Calcutta or Kolkata. Calcutta, once the capital of India, played a very important role in Indian history. Many young lives came here from the West in search of their fortune. And yes, and they never returned to their country. They never returned home. They returned after making their wealth or stayed back, considering the city as their own land. Present webinar will talk about those heydays of Kolkata, heydays of Calcutta, which still whispers in all alleys, gullies, nooks, and corners of present Calcutta or Kolkata. Kolkata, again, a city which is of mystery, which is of culture, and most importantly, the best of the food, the best of the sweets in Calcutta. We are going to listen to all these things from our two very, very well-known speakers, Mr. Shamik Ray. Mr. Shamik Ray, Best National Regional Level Tourist Guide Award winner of 2016 and 17, was also involved in training the regional level tourist guides in 1994-95 and 96-97. Had teaching and research experience in University of Kalyani, Academy of Suburbia, WTCC School of Trade and Communication, Ramakrishna Mission Vidyapeeth, MPTI, Pondicherry University, Amity University. I think there is a whole long list of institutions where Mr. Shamik Ray has been teaching and is still teaching at these institutes, some of the institutes. He has been editor and founder of Tourism Theory and Practice, delivered lectures and chaired sessions in national and international seminars and conferences on tourism, language study, and social sciences. He has published 160 articles. Oh my God, what is that work? In different academic journals, 6 books, and contributed chapters on different fields of tourism study, published from Routledge Emerald, UK, and Apple Academic Press, USA. He has received Certificate of Excellence for Overseas Adventure Travel from Southeast Asia, from Overseas Adventure Travel, USA, and of course, he is now involved in Azadi Ka Amrit Mahotsav celebration of 75th year of India's independence. He is doing the content writing. Mr. Shamik Ray, welcome to this session. Welcome to this webinar. Let me also introduce the second speaker, or the speaker who's jointly going to present this today's subject, Bratati Saha. Bratati Saha worked as the assistant manager training in Amadeus and several inbound well-known companies, travel companies in India. She has, out of passion towards tourism, she completed her graduation in tourism. And of course, she's also a regional level tourist guide from Calcutta for the Eastern region. She's worked as a trip leader for OAT, LPTI, Noble Caledonia, Audley, Sita, Great Indian Rail Journey, and many more. She works as a visiting faculty to the various universities and tourism colleges. She has published articles on tourism in various magazines. So, Mr. Ray and Bratati, both welcome to this webinar. We are eagerly waiting to listen to you. And now the whole platform is yours to start the session. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Neela Madam. Namaskar, viewers, participants, on behalf of Shamik and Bratati. Special thanks to Ministry of Tourism, Government of India, who organized such a wonderful webinar series, Dekho Apna Desh. In this webinar series, quite a few times, we came across tourism treasures and offers of Bengal. But today, we will take you to a destination of Bengal, whose vivacity is very, very important. And we know that this is a dynamic this destination. And what's that? That is Calcutta or Kolkata. I can say it is none other than Calcutta or Kolkata, the gateway to the east of India. Through the centuries, the living and vibrant present and glorious heritage of the city attracts visitors, strangers, travelers, explorers across the globe. Even when there was no organized tourism concept in the world, emergence of Calcutta as the most important city of Asia in the 18th century was neither chance erected nor chance directed, as it was said by famous English poet. Rather, I think it was trade interest driven. Dramatic growth in the size of the city, volume of trade, socio-economic prosperity, and dramatic changes in its role in the politics of subcontinent by the end of 18th century made Calcutta an important city of the contemporary world. Thus, the city was often referred as the city of palaces or the London of Orient, a living destination that has a long, glorious, and dynamic heritage like Calcutta could be gazed, explored, and then perceived best only through its tales, stories, and lores, or rather oral lores, since stories make the attraction alive, connect the visitors to attraction and its past glories. Well, let's start the virtual walk of the London of Orient through alleys and gullies of its stories, which still whispers at every nooks and corners of the city. Our journey will be short due to time constraint and severe COVID condition. Well, in the presentation, you can see one pond or tank. The tank in the presentation is called Lal Dighi. It remains the nerve center of trading, economic pursuits, and politics for centuries and witnessed many historic events. We will start our walk from here. Lal Dighi means red water tank square, named after red or crimson color that the water acquired during Holy Festival, Color Festival in the 17th century. Or it might got its name from the name of a merchant, Lal Chand Basar, who's supposed to be the founder or who dug out it. Originally, it was called Red Tank Square. As soon as English advent or English came in this region, they prohibited Indian people to use this tank. So there was no chance to the change of color because they were not allowed to do the holy festival around this tank. So they dropped the word red, called it Tank Square for a century. Then in the middle of the 19th century, they renamed this square in the name of Lord Dalhousie, who was the Governor General in the mid of the 19th century. And later on, we, after independence, rename it in the memory of three young freedom fighter, Binoy Badal and Dinesh, called this Binoy Badal Dinesh Square or Bug. It is said that before the beginning of transformation of a cluster of villages, Sutanuti, Gobindpur and Kolkata to a city, there was a Shamrai temple and a Vaishnav temple and a Kachari or revenue office and court of local landlords along Tanks Bank. But there were settlements of sheds, the bankers, boshaks, the textile merchants, cultivators, fishermen, even some Europeans like Armenians, Portuguese, within a few kilometers of the tank. Some on the north, some are on the eastern side, some on the towards the northern, southern part. In the presentation, you can see one white church. This white church is the Armenian church. This construction made in 1724 by the Armenians, but before that there was another church which was built in by wood, which gutted down before 1707, and then they reconstructed this church in the same place. And around this area, in the northern side, towards the northern part of the Tank Square, they had that settlement. And On the right side of the presentation, you can see a plaque. That is the tomb plaque of a foreigner or a lady called Shukia Bibi. And this lady was the foreigner Armenian lady, died in Calcutta. And this is probably the first tombstone or the burial of a foreigner here in this city. In the late 17th century, when Job Charnock, an Englishman, you can see the face of Job Charnock in the presentation from Lancashire, bought those three villages from local landlord for English East India Company and received permission of trading in Bengal for the company from the Mughal Emperor Aurangzeb. The shifting of English settlement from Sutanuti Ghat, you can see the English people on the boat, that from Sutanuti Ghat area to the Red Tank Square began. The wheel of fortune of Calcutta then began to roll. Interestingly, Charnock died in Calcutta a year after the deal of free trade was final and buried in Calcutta. We'll see his tomb when we will go to the St. John's Church. You know, as a voyage from Britain to India took between 3 to 5 months in 17th century and 18th century. So there was no option to go and come frequently. So Europeans had to settle here for a period of time. But with their Western lifestyle, which was evident in the construction of their playhouse. This is in the presentation on the left side, the old playhouse, which was located in a place where now stands that red building, which is the headquarters of the Calcutta Police. Even during the British period, it was called as the Scotland Yard of India, and so famous. But Old Playhouse was quite important at that time, and by the side of Old Playhouse, there was another building, just you can see far, a little bit far, which is the first Collectorate Office. And then Europeans, these people, English people and other Europeans, likewise, they eventually made the city as their hometown, introducing club culture, besides the playhouses, building racing ground and golf courses. When we are talking about theater, because they were fond of theater at that time, there was no television and nothing. So I can refer the name of an actor and musician, but he was not English. Gerasim Lebedev was a Russian, very interesting Russian in Calcutta at that time in the late 18th century. Not only he, there are there were few more Russian in Calcutta. One I know, he was doctor. Anyway, primarily he was a church musician, Lebedev, and but became play actor later and musician of the play. He lived in Calcutta about a decade, founded the non-company playhouse because old playhouse was called as a company playhouse, and it was founded near the old playhouse and received great encouragement from the residents of Calcutta, including the then Governor General Sir John Shore. His popularity made the company playhouse people jealous. They first tried to make him leave Calcutta by force, failing which they sent an employee to join Lebedev's company for sabotage. But it was said that his playhouse burned down shortly afterwards due to conspiracy against him. So there were a lot of conspiracies, rivalries at that time among those people. So I want to request Bratati to share some other stories of the rivalry in Calcutta. Over to Bratati.
Hello, viewers. So as we have started working towards the western direction, very soon after Lal Bazaar, we will come at the corner of the Old Court House Street. This used to be one of the busiest streets at the mid of 19th century, as you can see in the picture. At one end, you can see the St. Andrew's Church, and it built just to connect the Red Road in the present day. The whole street used to be known as the Old Courthouse Street. Why the name is? Because the location where the St. Andrew's Church is standing today, that was the place for old court of Calcutta. That court became famous after the famous verdict of Maharaja Nanda Kumar. The court was in that location till 1774, and after that temporarily shifted to Fort William, and finally to the present location where our present day High Court is situated, which served as a Supreme Court till 1911, till the time we were the capital of the country. Now, the church has a beautiful story of rivalry. History says when the Britishers came to India or in Calcutta, they brought some Scottish people with them. They were very good in their job and very hardworking. These Scottish boys on Sunday morning used to go to the St. John's Church, the then British church, for Mass. But at the church, they were offered the last seats, as they were treated as a second citizen at the second capital of London. So they asked for their own church. And after very long time, they got a certain amount of money, the small piece of land, stipulating that it should not have any steeple. Why? Because it is a Scottish church and it should be always lower than the British church. But Scottish bishop was stubborn. He not only made it higher than the St. John's Church, also placed a cock at the top to crow over the British bishop. Just to remind the British bishop, which used to make sound every hour, that look, we are higher than you. Till 2020, that is 1818 to 2020, the cock was still there. Unfortunately, last year, 2020, due to Amphan, we lost the piece of history.
Well, it's very interesting, Brother T. There were a lot of rivalries, and Scottish thought the rival is their friend. So they made friendship with the locals, and with the joint hand, they built a lot of institution of education to make the city enlightened. And as well as, they wanted to live like a Maharaja style life, like the emperor, as the famous author William Dalrymple referred them as white Mughals. In fact, one of them was very important. He was called as David of Colonial. After his death, there was a monument in Calcutta, that is famous Calcutta monument. And the people said that he had more than a dozen Indian wives. They have many wives, Indian wives, they have harems, so life like emperor. And other person like Mr. Skinner, who had many wives, and after his death, there was a legal case of heir of his property, was in Calcutta court of the Supreme Court of the British East India Company in Calcutta. And they found that there were 90% who declared themselves as the heir of the property of Mr. Skinner. We don't know how many wives did he have. Anyway, if we, so there are a lot of rivalries we have, and also lavish life. If we walk few steps from the Scottish Church towards the west, we'll find the most imposing public building of the city, called Writers' Building. It has a telling history of over 3 centuries long of its makeover, initially designed by Thomas Lyon in 70s of 18th century for a brick-made multi-floor edifice on the northern side of the Times Square, when that northern side street was called as the Great Bungalow or Bungalows Road. It has a great mix of different style of architecture, as you will find mix of Greco-Roman columns at the middle, and at the top of the middle we have, above the national emblem, we have the statue of Minerva, and there are a lot of other statues like on the left, right side, science, industry statues of Greek statues, and also there are influences of Victorian, neoclassical, Italian Renaissance style. Why it is so much of mixture? Because the building had gone through several extensions over the years to accommodate the increasing pressure of the administration. As the British East India Company at that time, they are expanding their empire to different parts of this subcontinent. And it was the primarily the barrack for writers to stay and to work. For a period of time, it was housed for the Fort William College. In fact, before this construction of this building, the clerks or the writers had to stay in shanty, small houses, thatch houses, in the Fort William, also along the bank of the river Hooghly. Later, it became the administrative nerve center of the company and sometimes of the British Raj. Do you know what happened in this building in 1930? The building has witnessed the bravery of three young freedom fighters, Binoy Badul Dinesh, after whose name the area is now renamed as Binoy Badul Dinesh Square or Bagh. On a calm December day of 1930, most probably late December, the usual working ambience was suddenly disrupted inside the writers' building, as Binoy Badal Dinesh, dressed in European attire, came from the shadows and opened fire from their revolvers and killed Colonel Simpson, notorious person, IG Prison Calcutta, who for years brutally oppressed the political prisoners in Bengal jails. So that's why Binoy Badal Dinesh wanted to teach him a lesson. If we walk a bit further, you will see in the presentation there is a huge column, and that was the column of the old black hole monument, and that was re-erected by Lord Curzon. But it was not the original place. The original place is at the GPO. We will talk about that. And if we go further towards west, we'll see this red building. This is a huge red building, Victorian style, built in 1892. And there are also influence of the Greco-Roman style. And it is the Collectorate House. But as we have referred, the first Collectorate House was built near the old playhouse, but later it changed its address quite a few times, sometimes in Old Mint, sometimes in the fort, and sometimes in other places like Chorongi. Finally, in 1892, it shifted to this building. You know, the first collectorate of this collector of company was Mr. John Holloway, who involved or who had an experience of the black hole tragedy, what we will talk about later. And there was a norms at that time. Collectorate should be from English and deputy collectorate will be from India. So first deputy collector was Govindaram Mitra from Calcutta, who was a wealthy man of Calcutta at that time, in the late 18th century, who built the then highest edifice to compete the English. That was a temple, nine-tower temple in the city, in the northern part of the city, which is no more, and had a few horse-drawn carriage, which was also rare at that time. And if we further walk towards from there, from the Collectorate Office towards the south, you will find General Post Office building. And I want Bratuti will share the stories of General Post Office. Over to Bratuti.
So as we walk further towards south, we will get to see this beautiful, big, with a huge tower and a very important landmark of the city, which is GPO. We can call it a General Post Office or the Grand Post Office. Till the time we were the capital of the country, it was the highest post office for India. And after shifting of capital, it remained as the highest post office for state West Bengal. 220 feet in height with 22 beautiful Corinthian column and a giant clock adorn this building. In a present day, when it is the era of emails, till it serves 100,000 postcards every day. But the location of the post office is also very important. Before the post office built at the mid of 19th century, it was the place for Old Fort William. And it has a history with the siege of Calcutta. 1756, Sirajuddaula attacked Kolkata. He attacked Kolkata just to teach some lesson to the British traders at Kolkata, who did not pay any attention to his farman. On that day, 20th of June, he demolished almost each and every building of Calcutta. At night, in the evening time, when it was the last point to attack in the Fort William, there are 146 people were confined. As per the British report, out of 143, 123 people was died. And that incident is famous or infamous as black hole incidents, or as per British, it is black hole tragedy. One of the survivors was Sir J.Z. Hollowell, who was the first collector, as Samik sir has already mentioned, of Calcutta. So after being a collector, he made a memorable monument at the exact location where the black hole tragedy took place. It was made of black marble. Later on, by Lord Curzon, it was shifted near the Writers' Building with a white marble, and finally it got its place at the St. John's Church courtyard. So when we will be going to the St. John's Church, we will get to see the Black Hole Monument of Calcutta. As we walk further to the southern direction, we will see this beautiful red building, which is written as a Royal Insurance Building. Not only the Royal Insurance Building, you will also get to see the Standard Life Insurance, Postal Life Insurance, all other big postal companies landed here from London, who started gaining money quickly. Why? The insurance company in a country, it shows the wealth of the country, economic condition of the country. I must tell you, at mid of 19th century, Kolkata was one of the richest city of the country. And the death rate of the people was quite high in Kolkata. So that's why the insurance was pretty high and every company used to do very well. So if we move towards south, one more building we can see, that is the Standard Life Insurance Company, which is still exists. And the building has a beautiful entrance, and there are several government offices are running from this building. Now, next building, which is the CTO building. When we talk about the Central Telegraph Office, we should talk about Lord Dalhousie, the Governor General of India from 1848 to 1856. He initiated the modern postal service in India in the year 1854. And the telecommunication also began during his time. It was 1850 when the telegraph service started, and the first experimental electric telegraph line was started between Calcutta and Diamond Harbour. However, the telegraph service opened in public in 1854. So the building which we can see now, it's located at the southern side of Dalhousie Square, used to be a tank, which was filled by the owner, William Tuller. And it was a place for his auction mart. It's believed he used to auction from horse to libraries, everything. And after that, British East India Company occupied this building and they changed it as a CTO, or Central Telegraph Office of India. So it is considered as one of the first telegraph office in India. And also it is need to be mentioned, like last telegram of the world, sent 2013. And that was sent from this building. So both ways, it is the first of India and last for the world. The adjacent building to CTO is the Dead Letter Office. 115 feet height, the bell tower gives it a very beautiful look. Why Dead Letter Office? We know we cannot write the letter to dead people. But as I have already mentioned, like the death rate was quite high due to tropical weather, tropical diseases. Those young boys, those who used to come here in search of their luck and fortune, used to die very soon. So the letters used to come by ships and comes in 3 to 5 months. So by the time the letter used to reach Calcutta, the person was already dead. When the letter used to go to their address, somebody else used to return them telling that he is no more. So this return letter used to be deposited in this building. And that's how It is commonly known as by local people, the Dead Letter Office. While we are looking at this beautiful picture of Dead Letter Office, please don't miss that picture of tram, the heritage tram, which is only available at Kolkata. So whenever you're coming to Kolkata, don't forget to take a ride on it. Now that I'm crossing the road towards the eastern side, and I will stop in front of this beautiful white building, which is the currency building. Before it was a currency building, it was a place for an auction mart. Auction was quite common in Kolkata because it was a very rich city and British people were very fond of auctioning. So it was a place for an auction mart, Bengal Auction Center. And then at the mid of 30s of 19th century, it was a Bank of Agra. Then for some time, it worked as a part of Reserve Bank of India and finally converted to the currency building. Freshly minted coin before distributing to the bank used to deposit it in this building. People says that it has a tunnel below the ground which connects till the Ganges to get the supply of cold water to cool down the freshly minted coin. Till now, at the ground floor, there are 2 rooms which is totally covered by the iron, like the roof, floor, wall. It was the room, both the room used to be used as a vault for the fresh coins. Present day, it has been converted to a beautiful museum for painting and sculptures named as Ghore Baire. And this is one of the best painting gallery, in my opinion, if you want to see the Bengal School of Art. Over to sir.
Very interesting, as by 100 years or maybe 120 years, Calcutta grew like a huge city, very rich city. And we, just to compare with London, we are going to present a pair of slide where on the left side you find Calcutta in 1804 and right side London 1810. So you can see the similarities. Both the cities having 2-story, 3-story building, multiple buildings along the streets and every nook and corner. This was the center of the city at that time. Well, now we can cross back and walk to the CTO, and then from CTO, if we take a walk towards the southern side, we will reach to a building, very imposing building, and that is the building which was built by Lord Wellesley. But before 1798, there was this campus. There was no such building, but there was one house called Buckingham House. You know, English did not want that another edifice in the rest of the world with the name Buckingham. So Wellesley bought this land and he demolished that building. And also he thought that the Governor General should live in a palatial, imposing building, not in a rented house. Because before him, all the Governor Generals, they lived in the rented house. So he built this and lived for some times as Governor General in this house. And the building was built in different style of architecture mixed, like classical, neoclassical, and also Greco-Roman influence as well. In fact, a lot of other governor generals who lived here till 1911, as Calcutta was the capital of British India till 1911. So everyone adds something. Most of them prominent was Lord Lytton and Lord Elgin. And the first elevator of India introduced in this building, and the first electric elevator as well introduced in this building by those governor generals. And also Lord Curzon added a lot of things. Why? Because fortunately or unfortunately, this building, when it was built following the architectural design of Gladstone Hall of England, which was the ancestral house of Lord Curzon. So Lord Curzon had to leave when he became the Governor General, and he wanted to make changes according to the interior of the Gladstone Hall back to England. And very interesting, this from Raj Bhavan, this is now the Governor General's Governor's house, of West Bengal. If we walk a little further towards the east, we will find a huge building, the one of the existing, most important and existing hotel of the city. And as well, it is very interesting. This is possibly the oldest hotel of the continent of Asia. In fact, that was called Great Eastern Hotel. But there was another hotel before Great Eastern Hotel, which was called as the Spence Hotel, which was in the other corner of the Raj Bhavan, and which is no more today. And Great Eastern Hotel, when it was built, the name of the hotel, not Great Eastern Hotel, it was Auckland Hotel. Why? The founder, Mr. Wilson, he was a bakery man. He wanted to get some concession from the government, and that's why he made or named the hotel as Auckland Hotel. As soon as Mr. Auckland left India, he named it as Wilson Hotel. Very interesting. This hotel renamed in 1913 as Great Eastern Hotel, and many important dignitaries of the world like Bulganin, Nikita Khrushchev, Ho Chi Minh, even people said that Elizabeth II sometimes when she traveled to Calcutta lived here, and even Mark Twain also lived here, the American writer. And there are many more things. If they had walked inside their heritage park, now it belongs to,
Shamikji,
yes.
sorry to
Hello.
interrupt. I think the presentation has gone off the screen. Maybe you can continue with the history of this place that you were talking about till Bratati, I think, has to get back on screen till she starts the presentation. Or if you have the access, maybe you can start the presentation.
Access. I'm going to talk about the other thing. Like we will come back to the Great Eastern Hotel
Right.
again back. But in the meantime, what I want to say that they have at that time have a lavish life in Calcutta. And what is kind of lavish life I can describe? Like from dawn to dusk, they were surrounded by servants, many servants. And one of them, we will talk about him, was Philip Francis, who involved in famous duel with Warren Hastings, who Francis lived in a two-storied house along with three other Englishmen. And for those four Englishmen of that house, there were 100 servants. While Alexander Maccabee, another Englishman, who also lived in the posh area of the city, posh quarter, which was called as Park Street at that time, and had 110 servants. Attorney Hickey had 633 servants. How they lived their life? They awakened by a pose of servants. A barber shaved him, a hairdresser attended them while they are in breakfast. Okay, let me finish this story,
Sure.
lavish life,
Thank you.
and then after breakfast, hookah Bardar softly slipped the other end of the hookah tube to them, and later on, a person drove them to their office. But they were preceded by 8 to 12 persons like chubdars, harkaras, peons, so on and so forth, all Indians. They used to work in the office from 9 to 12 in the summer, and in the winter 10 to 10:30. At lunch, they had to again come back to the home, attended by 10 to 12 servants with a huge grand lunch, and attended by those people, cook, bearers, pankhawalas, hookah, so on and so forth. They made their fortunes in few months or a year, in fact, or two. But most times they lost that in a night at cards. As I have told you, they have the club culture they introduced. Once Sir Francis, at a single sitting, owned 20,000 pounds. On the other occasion, Richard Barwell lost 40,000 pounds. So that imposing building we talk about. So from the Raj Bhavan, if we walk bit towards the eastern side, we find this building as in the presentation, the Great Eastern Hotel. We talked about the Great Eastern Hotel, who built Mr. Wilson. And I told that inside the Great Eastern Hotel, Lalit Group, who took over this hotel and made a lot of heritage renovation, opened a part of the hotel for the people, and they had the walk tour inside the hotel, which will show the rooms and the heritage part used by Elizabeth II, Nikita Khrushchev, Bulganin, and Ho Chi Minh, even Mark Twain. And you will have opportunity to see the more than 100 years old oven of Mr. Wilson's bakery in there. So, well, that's not the only hotel. In fact, as I have told you about the Spence Hotel, which is nearby the Great Eastern Hotel, but not on the other side of the Raj Bhavan, which is no more. And Spence Hotel was the first hotel, star category hotel, I can say of that time, of Asian continent. And the name of the hotel referred in the book of Jules Verne's Steam House novel. Well, from there, again, if we come back towards the western side, we will find this imposing building, which was made out of stone and brick. That's the first cathedral of Anglican. I request Bratati to share the story of this church with the viewers. Over to Bratati.
Okay, so as we have reached to our last spot for the walk tour, it is the St. John's Church, the third oldest church for the city. In local colloquial language, it is known as Pathure Girja or the Stone Church. As you can see, the steeple is made of stone and the building is made out of brick and cement. Before the building was here, before the church was here, it was a burial ground. And if we go to the mid of 18th century, the siege of Calcutta, as I already shared you the story that how Sirajuddaula demolished each and every British building, including the first church of British Empire at Kolkata. So mid of 19th century, or rather around late 18th century, when number of British young boys started coming to Calcutta every day, like searching their luck, their fortune. They wanted to worship, and there was no such place for them. A small cathedral, or rather a small chapel was there inside the Fort William, which was not enough for them. So when the first Governor General, Warren Hastings, was looking for a land and to start with a church, Maharaja Navakrishna Dev Bahadur, the founder of Shobhabaja Raj family, who was the owner of this land, presented this land to him on 1783. 1784, the foundation stone was laid, and 1787, the church built. When you're coming to the church, don't forget to go inside to see the beautiful painting of Johann Joffany for Last Supper. This church, as I have said, it is a piece of a history. In the church ground, you will see quite a few monument memorials. One of them is the famous Black Hole Monument, which we have discussed during the time of visiting GPO. This is made of white marble and it's octagonal in shape. In every side, the name of the people written who died that night. After this Black Hole Monument, if we take a left turn, you will see this beautiful tomb, the famous tomb for Job Chanuk, who is sleeping here since 1692, much before the church built. Who is sleeping here with his beloved wife and sister and daughter. I'm sorry, it's a daughter. And the tomb was built by stone. As Kolkata is not the place for stone, the stone was bought from South India and famously known as Chanukites. From Chanuk's tomb, if I take a left turn, you will see a beautiful tomb. This is known as Begum Johnson's tomb or Mrs. Francis Johnson's tomb. The beautiful tomb with a beautiful elaborate plaque talks about her lavish life. She was a daughter of a commander of the, she was a daughter of a governor at Coromandel and started her wedding at 13 years and married for quite a few times. So her life, her children, and their stories are written on this plaque. He lived and died in Kolkata on aged 87. So we don't know what is the story or the secret behind the long life of her. Sir, it's over to you.
You can see it is the tomb of Mr. Charles Watson, not the assistant of Sherlock Holmes, and who he was. This man was important man who helped Robert Clive to recapture Calcutta after a few months of the siege of Calcutta by Siraj in 1756, when the Black Hole incidents happened. And he was one of the victors of and both uh, of Clive and Watson to become the governor of the Fort William. And in fact, Clive then threw a duel to Watson unless he recognized him as governor. Admiral Watson, man of principle, refused to accept the duel with a junior speaker, with a junior ranker. Ultimately, he became frustrated, exhausted, and some said that he suicided and buried in Calcutta on 16th August 1757. That's plaque says. In fact, besides their lavish life, they also involved in the duel. There are many other duel stories. One of them is famous between Hastings and Francis. I request Bratati to share the story of duel between Hastings and Francis.
So when duel was very common in England, the first duel happened at Kolkata between the first Governor General Warren Hastings and Sir Philip Francis. People says it was out of the ego clash between these two gentlemen. And the critic says that there was an intermarital affairs of Philip Francis with the then notable beauty of 18th century Mrs. Catherine Grant that made Warren Hastings jealous. So he invited Sir Philip Francis for the duel. For Mr. Philip Francis, it was no other option just to accept the duel. And the duel happened at present day's Duel Avenue, which is beside the Belvedere House in Hastings. Philip Francis wounded, and the winner was Warren Hastings. Just after the duel, Philip Francis left India and returned back to England. Sir,
Besides the dual culture, and the lavish life, they also introduce themselves as most important enlightened people of the society of Calcutta. So they, amid lavish lifestyle, they also put effort to create Calcutta's fame as an enlightened city as London. Thus, first newspaper of India came out from this city. Learned Englishmen initiated printing industry here. Institutions of higher researches and learning, like the Asiatic Society, founded by Sir William Jones in the then posh quarter of the city, the Park Street, number 1 Park Street. Then the college, universities, and medical institutions gradually built in the city by them by the middle of the 19th century. That's their effort. In fact, I think, we have to, no much time, so we have to wrap up. We finish our tour here in the St. John's Church here. I would like to request Bratati to conclude the virtual walk. Over to Bratati.
so as we have completed our tour and we talked about the British history, but I must tell you, Kolkata is not at all about British history. It is a melting pot for all religion, which can satisfy the urge of every traveler, being it history, heritage, culture, tradition, knowledge, or food. With maximum variation of transport, which is available in Kolkata, in India, from street food to the posh restaurant, from local market to the shopping mall, Kolkata is the paradise for the tourist. So we shared that there are many such stories which still whispers in every nooks and corners of the city. Stories of the European babus, nabubs, stories of corruption, betrayal, greed, and romance. But besides those stories, there are the stories of knowledge growth of the city and the role of Calcuttans in the freedom movement. There would be many more such kind of tours mingling with the stories. As we don't have much time today, we need to wrap up. But as you come here, we promise to show you the city by walk with the beautiful stories. Till then, stay safe and stay healthy. Namaskar.
Thank you so much, Bratati, and thank you so much, Shamik ji. Both of you really took us down the memory lane, and what a well-informed, wonderful walk down the lanes of Kolkata with some interesting stories like the currency building, some little known inputs like the installation of first electronic elevator, and such fascinating and beautiful images of the old charm of the city of Kolkata. Stories from London of Orient, Kolkata. Wonderful, wonderful webinar, wonderful session you both of you have done. There is a question. There are a few questions which I will be forwarding them to you. Because of short of time, you could answer them later. Can you tell us whether there are any regular city tours which will take tourists down these memory lanes?
Yes, madam, there are not regular tour, but there are also walk tours through this area and in other part of the city. Now there is a regular tour. It's very interesting during the COVID period. Government of West Bengal Tourism Department, they introduced double-decker bus. They took back the memory of double-decker bus. Similarly, open hood double-decker bus. Maintaining the COVID protocol, they introduced this tour for
Okay.
4 hours, driving through this area, and some places we walk down, some places we by the bus we did. So it is for last few months, maybe 6 months. It is doing very well.
That's great. The praises are pouring in definitely for both of you. It was a wonderful session. I'm sure our viewers would definitely like to visit Kolkata if not already visited, or maybe revisit this very old charm of the city of Kolkata. I think you are very fantastic. Besides these tours of old charm city, are there any special interest tours which you would like to tell our viewers? Quickly, we
Yes,
still have a few minutes.
there are special interest tours like the national movement tours and like the freedom movement tours through the northern part of the city. Even about the intellectual advancement of the Bengali people, specifically in the northern part of the city, or maybe any other tour like temple tours or mixed of specifically the life of the
That's
city
right.
with the
That's
different markets like flower market. It's a bustling area. If you visit there, better during the COVID situation, if you see from the bridge, you can get a panoramic view. It's a fabulous view, even
that
in the ghats of the city. Very interesting.
I'm sure. And of course, how can you forget to tell us about some food trips?
Yeah, food trips, of course. Of course, in this situation, we did not want to mention.
No, not
I
now, but
don't
I'm
know.
sure
Yeah,
we get
yeah,
over
because street
this.
food of Calcutta, as Bratati mentioned,
Yes,
is excellent.
yes.
And from the kati rolls down to the pani puri fuchka, we say.
True.
So everything over there.
So Calcutta is always, or Kolkata is always an inviting city, visited a number of times and can't really return to the city of Mumbai without eating any of those lovely street food. And of course, the buildings are beautiful. The tram ride is fantastic. And as you said, the double-decker bus has started now. So there is a lot for our viewers to look forward to when they come to Calcutta or Kolkata. Viewers, I mean, we thank both of you once again. Thank you for this wonderful session. And Shamikji and Bratati, look forward to having some more sessions from you, as you're always involved in some or the other historical events of the city. So we will definitely come back and have some more information from you. Viewers, we come to an end to our session today, but don't forget to log in next Saturday, because in our next webinar, we will be bringing in another exciting episode with Neil Macken from UK and Bindu Menon, who will talk about Neil's experiences working and traveling in India, from the Himalayas to the Western Ghats, and how India's unique and diverse natural heritage makes it one of the best travel destinations on earth. Are we not happy to listen to this? And we are going to be more happier viewing his journey from Himalayas to the Western Ghats. So viewers, don't forget to log in again on next Saturday at 11 a.m. Till then, share the information on this webinar with your family and friends. Dekho and dikhao apna desh through these webinars. Keep taking good care of yourself. Take precautions, stay safe, and stay happy. Thank you. Thank you so much. Jai Hind.